Am I the a-hole for calling my mom when my husband refused to listen to me? I, 26 female, recently moved into my first home. I am also 4 months pregnant with our first baby. The pregnancy has been very hard. I have horrible morning sickness that reached a really bad point where I passed out and hit my head, and my doctor admitted me to the hospital for a week. When I got home, my husband allowed his brother's family to move into 2 of our 3 bedrooms. They were evicted, and I don't know why. One room was my office was tossed into our room, papers everywhere. The house was a complete wreck. Trash, dirty clothes, used diapers. I started to cry. It was like a light flipped and my husband was no longer the same. My husband told me it wasn't that bad. My reply was, fine then. You should have the house cleaned up before I wake up. Completely exhausted, I fell asleep for 4 hours. I woke up and went to get a drink of water. And I couldn't as every glass we owned is scattered around the house. They didn't clean a single thing. I passive-aggressively started to pick up the dirty dishes and wash them. The following morning, I was trying my best to work when their kids were crying nonstop, banging on the wall, so on. Their mom was in her room for hours ignoring them. When my husband came home, he was upset with me over how I didn't make his brother's wife feel welcome in our home by helping with her kids when she was tired, then continued to complain how nothing was done in the house while he was at work all day. Yep, the same house he didn't clean. That led to a fight where I told him, I am sick to have company and they need to leave. To which he replied, they're his family, and he won't kick them out. I started to cry again. I was beyond frustrated, exhausted. I physically couldn't do it anymore. So I called my mom asking if I could come stay with her, telling her the whole story in front of my husband, who at this point was completely shocked, angry. Also, I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. My mom came with my brothers. I have 3 older brothers. My super angry mom told my husband, since your family can stay, so can we. My mom then quickly took charge. I was sent to bed while my brother started cleaning, complaining loudly at how disgusting my brother-in-law's family is, along with what a horrible husband my husband is for putting me through this while I am sick. Later, I got a text message from my mother-in-law calling me an a-hole for not helping my husband clean up the house and putting my brother-in-law in an uncomfortable position by having my mom boss him around. Now for the top comments. Wait, your mother-in-law called to fuss at you for involving your mother? There's this pot kettle thing. Not the a-hole 1000%, but house guests in a shared home require 2 yeses and only 1 no. Both of you agree or it shouldn't happen. Your husband has treated you abominably. I'm not sure I could deal with that honestly. Can you go stay with your mom? I agree with the 2 yeses, but I wasn't even asked to say no. Which is a huge sign of disrespect and a major red flag. Does he do this a lot? Does he actively treat you like a partner? Or does he just decide things and you go along to keep the peace? This will not get better, OP, if you don't set some major boundaries. Again, that he did this while you were in the hospital suggests he knew you didn't agree and wanted to present it as a done deal you couldn't/wouldn't argue with. Go stay with mom and let him enjoy lying in the filthy bed is made. And honestly tell him that you're not coming back until they're gone, and your house is as clean as when you left it. If you won't or can't, then you know where his priorities are. You're pregnant. The house you describe is unfit to bring a newborn into. Depending on how bad and what country you live in, Child Protective Services could step in. Is your marriage worth potentially losing custody of your baby over? Because I can tell you right now that it shouldn't be. That baby has to be your #1 priority, and living in a house full of dirty dishes and moldy food ain't it, sis. My heart hurts for you. You deserve so much better. He has always been very respectful. It was like his switch went off, and he's no longer acting like the loving person I know when he's around his brother. I know this may be hard to hear, but I don't think this is about his brother. You're now pregnant with his child and tied to him forever. This is when a lot of abusers show their true colors. It's time for you to start thinking about exit strategies. Not the a-hole. In fact, I think you were underreacting, which is understandable considering your current health. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister listen to her daughter scream? My 33 female sister Marnie, 35 female, has a 3-year-old daughter Annabelle. I love my niece very, very much, but Marnie sets down no boundaries for her. Everything Annabelle does is age-appropriate, but as a parent, it's your job to help your child become the best person they can be. When Annabelle doesn't want to do something or needs to get her way, she screams. It's very, very loud and hard to ignore, so Marnie and her husband would instantly give in. As a mom of 4, I completely understand it's hard to hear your child cry or be upset. And sometimes, yes, absolutely pick your battles, but others, the toddler can't win. Around the holidays, Marnie and I hung out a lot with the kids. At one point, we were headed to an aquarium. Marnie started going one way and Annabelle started screaming. Marnie turns around and heads in a direction that'll add 15 minutes to our route. When I asked why, she said that Annabelle likes passing a certain landmark on her way. However, Annabelle then started screaming she didn't want to see it, and halfway there we turned around. It added more time and my kids were annoyed. I let most of this go as Annabelle is not my child. It isn't my vehicle nor house where these predicaments take place. But then Marnie broke her leg while her husband was out of town and she needed help getting around and tending to Annabelle. So I agreed they should stay with us. Last night, we pick up our kids from school, stopping at Annabelle's preschool last. Once we finally get her in the car, as she didn't want to leave and Marnie let her just run around for 10 minutes and wouldn't let me grab her because she's the boss of her body. I'm exhausted. I still have to get home and cook. As I'm heading in one direction, Annabelle starts screaming for me to go in the other. I calmly explain that ways longer and we don't have the time. Marnie asks me to just make it easier as she doesn't want to hear her scream. But going that way will add more time to our drive, so I say no again and kept driving, putting on some kid-friendly music while my kids are trying to distract Annabelle. Marnie starts crying, saying things like, "It's okay, baby. We'll be home soon. Oh, I know you're so sad." This isn't very nice. The thing is, Annabelle stopped screaming after 5 minutes when she realized she wasn't getting her way. Keep in mind, she never shed a tear, just screamed. Marnie later told me that I was horrible for forcing her to listen to her daughter scream. Asking wouldn't have been so hard to not add stress to her. My husband agrees that I did the right thing but also pointed out Marnie and Annabelle are going through a stressful time. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That poor kid apparently won't be learning appropriate behavior anytime soon. Yep, especially since anyone who teaches it to her will apparently be berated for making her scream. Annabelle needs to be taught good behavior immediately, and Marnie's doing a massive disservice to her child by refusing to parent her. As the saying goes, they can cry now or you can cry later. This won't get better as she gets older if Marnie keeps things this way, only worse. Not the a-hole. It's your car, and you're not being paid to chauffeur her daughter around. When she drives, she picks the path home, and you kept mom. They can afford you the same respect. But you can't change how your sister parents her child. You can only distance yourself from the spoiled brat she's raising. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think people have some complete, inalienable right to parent their kids as incompetently as they like in their own nuclear family silo. Sooner or later, we're all accountable to a community. I'm also not one of those people on this website who seemingly gets off at the thought of berating a bratty child stranger in public. That's not what I mean. But the adults closest to this kid's misguided parents have a role in enforcing their own expectations, making it clear that this kid will have to learn to cope if she wants to function in settings outside her own home. Better that than this kid's underpaid stressed teachers trying to do it alone, with no support from any other adults, while Opie and other family keep a cold distance. Not the a-hole. Hopefully Marnie and her husband will learn to set healthy boundaries with Annabelle. Does Annabelle behave like this at preschool? Yep, there's been a lot of behavioral reports because she screams when told no, or clean up messes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing my baby to the hotel resort my brother was getting married in? My brother was getting married, and it was a child-free wedding per future sister-in-law's request. The wedding was out of state, so my husband and I were going to make it into a 3-day weekend. We had a sitter lined up months ago, but the day before we were set to leave, she had to cancel for a family emergency. We tried to find a last-minute sitter that we trusted, and could also do just overnight but came up empty. I tried calling and texting my brother about the situation but couldn't get hold of him. We were both in the wedding party and I didn't want to leave my brother and his soon-to-be wife in bind, so I called my mother after that since I knew she was with them. I explained the situation and she said she'd call me back after talking to him. 4 hours passed and we didn't hear back from them, so we had to make a decision. And since we are currently sharing one vehicle, I couldn't really leave my husband and kid without a vehicle, and had put a lot of money already into the wedding and trip, so we just took our baby with us. We got there later than we originally planned and just went to our room. The next afternoon was the wedding, and my husband and I planned to swap time out. I'd go to ceremony and part of the reception while he stayed with the baby, and he could attend the second half of the reception while I stayed with the baby. When the ceremony was over, and we were heading inside to the reception, my husband had the baby inside in her stroller. I joined my husband and went to say hello to some family members, and went with him to congratulate my brother and new sister-in-law. Husband said his hellos and congrats, then went back to our room with our child. I left the reception area a few times to bring my husband some small plates of food so he didn't have to wait for his turn to eat. In one of my trips back, my brother spoke with me about it being child-free wedding, and his wife was upset that my husband had a baby in the lobby and that I kept leaving the reception. I told him they can't be too upset because we didn't bring the baby into the wedding area or the reception. But the rest of the time I was at the reception, I kept getting comments from who I'm guessing were sister-in-law's family and her bridesmaids about how I was trying to steal her thunder by having my baby there. Sister-in-law kept asking why I didn't just leave them at home and would not accept my reason for not doing so. It's been a sore spot for my family and her all weekend. Am I an a-hole for bringing the baby with us? Info: the wedding ceremony itself was outside in a courtyard. It was not in a closed-off area. We had to go through the lobby area to get to the reception hall. My husband was in the lobby walking with the baby and getting coffee from the hotel shop. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Short of abandoning your child, what else were you supposed to do? Would have loved to hear sister-in-law's recommendation, likely requiring duct tape. Not the a-hole. Wait, you don't use duct tape on your kids? Not the a-hole. Excited to hear what magical solutions everyone had on offer. You were in the wedding party. You had a solid plan for everything. You showed up and did an amazing job under those circumstances. The magical solutions were 1. Leave my husband without a car while he was home with our baby. 2. Leave our child with a babysitter we didn't know for more than one night. 3. My husband languished in the hotel room for hours without eating before he could go downstairs to the reception, which held to the no on room service prices. And 4. Whoever was watching the baby just stay in the room. You forgot the solution where someone actually got back to you in a timely manner about you losing your sitter. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You and your husband did all you could to respect the child-free wedding, while also dealing with an unexpected sitter cancellation. You tried to reach out to someone in advance of the wedding, and did everything you could to not have the baby be the center of attention. The only piece that maybe stands out is the left the reception area a few times. But without knowing what kind of setup that was or how you left, it doesn't change my opinion. Last story. Am I the a-hole for hiding condiments for my wife and children? My wife more or less takes care of the house and kids. When I'm home, I take care of the honey-do list and do my part around the house. Before I got married, I lived with my roommates and never had any problems. We were all immature adults who respected each other's boundaries, and when we didn't, we accepted the repercussions. Now, our house has a large kitchen with lots of cupboards. Our pantry's under the basement stairs. My wife leaves just the basics in the kitchen cupboards. She says that everything we aren't going to use up that week can stay downstairs. I am the only person in my family that eats certain snacks, as neither my wife or kids like my stuff. So I ask for one shelf in the kitchen for my stuff, not one cupboard. 1 out of 3 shelves and 1 out of 11 cupboards. My wife agreed that was fair, and it has been that way since we bought the house. I get to keep soap, candy, and salty licorice where I can always find them, along with my personal balsamic vinegar and few other things. My cupboard isn't stuffed, but it's not particularly organized either. But I know it's there, so I can reach in and grab what I want. For the last few months, my family has decided that since my shelf isn't full, they can stuff whatever they want in there. For the most part, it consists a bunch of giant condiment packs from Costco, stuff that belongs to the pantry. I've asked them not to do this, and I take the stuff down to the pantry. I am getting kind of sick of this. I started just pulling them out and leaving them on the counter, and they ended up back on my shelf. So now I hide them around the house. When they come looking for the salt, pepper, granulated garlic, garlic toast mix, or steak spice, I give them clues. Boy, I sure would be salty if I found that in the basement bathroom under the sink. Then they have to go dig it out from behind everything there. My wife says that she understands and that I can stop doing this. I agree, so I promised I would only do this stuff that wasn't mine that was on my single shelf. She said I was being an a-hole. I agree, but I don't think I'm alone in this. On the plus side, I don't have to hide half a gallon of vinegar in the garage now. Seems like I'm in the minority so far, but I think not the a-hole. With that much cupboard space and separate pantry, it would be very easy for them to just leave you your one shelf regardless of whether or not it is empty. It's not empty, it has my stuff on it. I don't know, man. Reading the absolute vitriol in the replies has me cracking up. I don't think it's that serious. She gave you spot for your stuff and is no longer respecting that space. Are you being a bit of a dum-dum with hiding stuff? Sure, but it's harmless. Going against the grain on this one to say not the a-hole. Or just move your food forward on the shelf so it looks full. But yeah, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Man wants one shelf to himself. He's fulfilled the usual AITA demand to communicate and it failed. Instead of the YTAers getting pissy with him, how about his family grant him one simple request? Agreed. OP is so petty. Darn right. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my parents with their mortgage, forcing them to lose their home, even though I can easily pay it off? I'm 23 female, my parents are 45 female and 46 male. I have two brothers, 24 and 21, and a little sister 8. We grew up upper middle class. As children, my parents would buy my two brothers whatever they requested, regardless of how expensive it was, allowed them to go on trips with them and threw them over the top birthday parties which I didn't receive any. For example, my brothers got to go to Disney for their birthdays while I stayed with my grandparents. Fortunately, my aunt/grandma took me to Disney a few months later. After being called out, they said they couldn't afford a trip for 5. As we got a little older, my parents had us working in their business after school and weekends. They gave both my brothers allowances for helping out while I didn't receive anything, though I was expected to do more. I wish it was just financial abuse though. My parents always said very hurtful things. They'd also make horrible comments when I entered the room, and I honestly still don't know what I did wrong. When my older brother graduated high school, they gave him an all-inclusive trip around Europe for the summer. When I graduated the next year, I didn't even get a party from them. I think the worst of it being they paid for both my brother's higher education, but told me to figure it out because they can't afford to pay for 3 college degrees. At 18, I moved in with my grandparents full-time and decided not to go to college because I didn't want to get into debt or put that burden on my grandparents, who offered to pay for some. I did, however, take them up on their offer to financially support me until I had a job. My grandma gifted me about $5,000 after moving in with her to help me start an online business I told her about. Long story short, my online shop blew up and made well over 6 figures my first year. Within 5 years, 2 online shops and a lot of investing in real estate and stocks, I now make way more money than my parents ever made combined. During the pandemic, my parents had to shut down their restaurants and are still struggling to make ends meet. They are also unable to pay for their mortgage and are afraid they'll go homeless if I don't support them. They also have a lot of medical bills after my father got into an accident and needed surgery for his knee. I, being so grateful for everything my grandparents and aunts have done for me, decided to get my grandparents their dream home and paid off my aunt's debts for medical school. After realizing I can also easily afford to pay off their debts/mortgage, my parents have been begging me, literally in tears, to save their home, but I refused. They told me I'm an a-hole and said I deserved my upbringing but that I shouldn't be punishing my siblings and forcing them out their homes for the actions of my parents. I'm not punishing my siblings though. I'll be more than happy to support them, especially my baby sister if she comes and stays with me or my grandparents. Am I the a-hole for watching them become homeless? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. As soon as you refused, the mask slipped. They told you that you deserved their mistreatment. It's very telling that they are aware they mistreated her. They acknowledged they were terrible parents to her by saying that. And yet, they still expect her to financially support them. They have some nerve. She owes them nothing and I'd be sure to tell them so. Not the a-hole. You reap what you sow. Where are the 2 brothers they gave so much to help them out? My younger brother, 21, is still in school and my older brother has a great tech job but has a family of his own and isn't able to support them much. Not the a-hole. But what do your grandparents think? Does it pain them to see their children like this? However, forgetting your parents for a minute, your siblings may resent you for life. Even your baby sister, for breaking up the family. You say baby sister can come stay with you away from her parents? I'd think long and hard about this. Maybe there is something you could do that meets in the middle. Like a deferred loan in writing or something. Just enough to not lose the house. This way it's just a small favor. My maternal grandparents, the ones who took care of me growing up, are on my side and don't think it's right for my parents to ask me for anything. They obviously feel bad for their daughter's situation, but don't think it's my responsibility, especially when they've called her out multiple times and she didn't change. Also, they aren't really a fan of my father. As for my siblings, they're fully aware of my treatment and wish they did something growing up but couldn't. They don't blame me for not wanting to help. We have a great relationship and I plan to support my younger siblings, 21 and 8. My little sister doesn't know anything about this and hopefully is kept that way until she gets older. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister throw a party and pay for a gift for our parents' 30th wedding anniversary? My sister, 29 female, is our parents' favorite. They have tried to hide it over the years, but for almost all of my 26 female life, it has been made perfectly clear that my parents care more about my sister. They know her favorite food, favorite color, favorite band, and generally things you're supposed to know about the people you are very close to / family. But they have always tended to forget mine and just give me my sister's favorite things. Other family members have pointed it out to them. My grandpa, who was the best to me growing up, called them out in front of everyone on more than one occasion for it. Like when I was 8, and they had a birthday dinner with my sister's favorite dinner instead of mine. Grandpa was like, "What the heck is this? Why did you make sister's favorite instead of Opie's?" My parents were all flustered and said it was just a silly mix-up. I'd say of the 16 birthday dinners I had with them, 15 of them were my sister's favorites and not mine. While the 16th one was only right because Grandpa forced his way into the kitchen to help that year. I was always a gamer and a reader. My sister loved makeup and dolls. So my birthday / Christmas gifts were often makeup and dolls. When people used to ask them what I wanted to be, they'd say what my sister wanted to be. I have brought up to them on multiple occasions that it hurts my feelings, but they never change. So I started to become more distant from my parents and don't make the effort I used to. My sister has acknowledged that she's aware of this stuff, but she still wanted me to help her throw a party for their anniversary and to go half with her on this really expensive gift she wants to get them. She told me about it over Christmas. The anniversary is in April. She wanted to go all out, but I told her I'm not doing anything that big to celebrate them and will not be putting all that effort in when they never make it with me. She told me that this would be helping her too. I told her she wants me to help her celebrate the people who show clear favoritism between their kids, but she doesn't see the big deal. We argued. She told me I was being childish and that I'm unfair to her / them. She told me if I don't help with the party and a gift, I am publicly shaming our parents and leaving it all on her shoulders. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Give them makeup and dolls. No, get them Grandpa's favorite. Opie, not the a-hole. Just forget about them and live your best life. Celebrate your grandpa though. He's the real one. Not the a-hole. Favoritism or not, you don't have an obligation to pay expensive gifts to your parents nor to throw big parties. It is nice if you can afford it and if you have a good relationship with them, but not given. Your sister calling you unfair when it was your parents showing clear favoritism is laughable. Did your sister ever stand up for you? Not that it was her role, but it would have been nice. Her behavior in this situation is really selfish. It's about what she wants and what your parents want, disregarding what you want once again. She didn't. Other family members did, but she'd say nice things to me after it happened. That was about it. So it's not really standing up. More like a pat in the back, but she didn't do anything to make an unfair situation right. Definitely not a-hole, OP. Blaming the person who suffered from discrimination is not okay. What your parents did was not okay, and what your sister said to you is not okay. None of their bad behavior is your fault. Not the a-hole, and I'm surprised you're still keeping in touch with them. You aren't obliged to give your parents anything just because they made you. I hope you are surrounded by better people now. I have considered not being in contact with them anymore. Never took that step, but it has totally crossed my mind. I went low contact with my toxic family, and I couldn't be happier with my life. If you think it's something that will make you feel better and safer, then give it some more thought. Good luck. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for the repairs for a car I gave to my nephew for free after buying myself a new one? Back in October, I decided to buy myself a new car, which is a used 2020 Jeep Compass. First vehicle I've gotten myself in over a decade. My nephew began college over the summer but had no car for transportation, and I was only going to get between $500 to $1,000 for it for trade-in or sale anyways. So, I decided to be a cool uncle and give it to him for free as his first vehicle. It was a 2008 Dodge and in pretty good shape. Drove well but had some problems such as oil pan leaking and some other minor work. So I brought it up with my brother, nephew's father, that I wanted to give my nephew my old car as a gift for free. I wasn't asking any money from them, but made it clear that they would have to pay for anything pertaining to the transfer to them and update the inspection or anything else that needed to be done. I also let them know of any problems with it that I knew of. When asked why I was getting a new car, I told them I had thought it was time, and I had a job and budget to get one. I had been thinking about it for a few years and finally decided I should just do it. They agreed and they took it to a mechanic they trusted and had to do about $540 worth of work on it, for brakes, inspection, oil pan, and some other minor work. He said not to worry about a bill, that he'd work it up later. My nephew was excited when we gave it to him when he was visiting on the weekend, so now he doesn't have to bum rides or take a bus. Well, a couple months go by and the mechanic finally gets around to making out the repair bill. That, like I said, came out to be about $540. Well, my brother now wants me to pay the bill and says I should have paid for all the work before I even gave it to my nephew. My response was, I told you what condition I knew of about a car, and that any repairs or transfer payments would be their responsibility. Now they are acting like I've cheated them somehow, when all I can think is that I gave them a car at no additional cost other than repairs, and somehow I'm the a-hole? What do you guys think? Should I have paid or chipped in for the repairs or what? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You told them what the deal was. They accepted it. Now they want to change the rules. If they mention it again, politely tell them that if the repairs are too much, you'll gladly take the vehicle back. But those are the options. Either shut up and pay the bill or give it back. No good deeds goes unpunished. OP, tell them you want the car back. Then you'll sell it and make money off of it, since you don't want to burden them with a free car. Not the a-hole. I did something similar with a friend's son. I asked him for $1,000 for the car that he could pay over 10 months. He paid me $300 over 3 months. Complained about the work it needed, which I told him about, and his dad also looked at it with him. Tuned it out like teenage boys who think they're real mechanics do. And it broke down beyond repair 6 months into him owning it. He never paid me the other $700. His mom wouldn't hold him accountable. So I took the L and made a mental note that will just never do him a favor again. When I was younger, my father was going to buy a new car and trade in the old one. My neighbor heard about it and asked my dad if he could buy it. My dad reluctantly agreed because he believed mixing money and friendship was dangerous. Sure enough, after a month or so, the car died. My neighbor informed my dad about it and made him feel bad, so my dad paid him back all of the money. A few years later, my parents wanted to sell the house and move away. They told the real estate agent not to put up signs but to sell it quietly. When our neighbors discovered they had sold the house, they were upset because my parents hadn't told them, because they wanted to buy it for their son. My father was wise in his decision not to involve family and friends in money transactions. I've learned a valuable lesson. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not asking my ex when I am moving abroad? Me and my ex-wife divorced when our daughter was 3 and she's 15 now. I'm gonna be fair. Ex has a lot of issues, to the level that every member of her family, her mom, dad, siblings, cousins, uncles, aunts, etc., gave testimonies against her at the case custody. As a result, I was given sole legal and medical custody after the divorce. She was bound to child support. That was automatically cut from her salary that was also decided by the judge because she was found untrustworthy to handle this. The house we lived in was her father's, and he made her move out to a smaller flat of his and he transferred the deed to mine in my daughter's name. She's also not allowed to have anything but supervised visits, but she didn't visit since she is 5 years old, so I mostly raised her by myself, with the help of our extended families. 2 months ago, I got a job offer from a university in Uruguay to be a visiting professor for 3 years. After I talked with my daughter, we thought it was a good idea, and she said she wanted to see and experience South America. There, I also don't have a rigid schedule, so we can tour around South America in these 3 years. I also never went to South America other than Rio in late 1990s for Rio Carnival, so it will be a new experience for me too. And at the 27th of December, we moved to Uruguay. Her family was supportive and told us to enjoy this experience. But the problem is my ex. She called me and yelled at me for 30 minutes. Then my daughter took the phone from me and closed it to her face after saying, "Why do you care when you weren't there?" The thing is, my ex doesn't have any power over me and my daughter, so we can do anything we want. She also doesn't own the house she's living right now, and father-in-law can kick her out if he thinks she is out of line. So I might be abusing the power I have. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. To your point, she hasn't cared for the past 10 years, so I think it's just the jealousy coming out in her. As long as you're legally able to move your daughter out of the country, go for it. Enjoy your life and don't look back. This indeed. Opie, don't even bother to let her father kick her out. Put your energy elsewhere. Just ignore her calls and go have fun with your daughter. If her father is annoyed with her, he can handle her himself. And I hope your daughter will have a blast. Not the a-hole for me, I reckon. I'm a little confused as to what the problem is that you describe at the end. It looks like you and your child are perfectly fine to move away to Uruguay. The anger that your ex-partner has seems likely to be driven by their own shame, rather than anything based on the situation. If they had a good relationship with their child and exercised the visitation rights, then it would surely be a difficult situation to manage. But that's clearly not the case here. I think their living situation shouldn't really be any concern when you and your child make this decision. It's really up to the father-in-law whether they boot them out. I think you don't have to feel guilty or responsible if their own actions cause them negative consequences. Father-in-law can kick her out if he ever thinks her daughter is disturbing her granddaughter. There are details that I couldn't write here, but if my ex goes to their parents' house, one of her sisters does a complete body search on her, in case she is hiding something dangerous or could be used as a weapon. Not the a-hole, but maybe cover your bases by talking with your lawyer. I am legally safe. I was even offered to terminate her parenting rights during the divorce process, but I didn't want it. I was still holding out hope for her, but maybe I should have done that. Would I be the a-hole if I didn't pay for my daughter's college tuition? I, 44 male, am divorced and have been for over 10 years now. My ex-wife and I have 2 children, one son Ben, 19, and one daughter Lauren, 17. My ex-wife and I split custody 50-50, and I paid child support on time every month, as well as ensured our children had everything that they needed for sports and other activities. At a young age, I started a college fund/early life starter fund for the kids, which they were aware of, and has grown to be a large amount through the years. Over the years, I have always had my children on my time and tried to be present in their lives. Ben has always been happy to come to my home, have family time, tell me about his life, have a father-son role pretty much. Lauren, on the other hand, is the total opposite. She pulled away at a young age, and when she was old enough to decide for herself, she cut me out pretty much 100%. I spent years of reaching out to her and trying to build some type of bridge with her, but nothing ever worked. She went to a few different therapists, and I can only hope it helped in some other aspects of her life, but it certainly didn't help in a family role. Over the past few years, my son has become angry with his sister and calls her ridiculous. I've told him to not mind that and it's not her fault, but him leaving for college changed me on the whole thing. When he left, I felt like I lost my only child, and I gave up trying to have a relationship with Lauren. She never reached back out, and neither did I. It felt terrible at first, but it's much easier to deal with mentally for me. A few weeks ago, Lauren and her mother reached out to talk about her college tuition and where she had decided to go. They asked me if I wanted to go walk the school with them again, and I declined. I told them that I felt I was only being invited because my checkbook was needed. I informed my ex and Lauren that I would not be paying for college or any other of her expenses after her 18th birthday, June, and that I was going to use the money elsewhere. My ex blew up at me. My daughter didn't say anything, and when they told my son, he called to tell me he thought I was right and Lauren was to blame. I wasn't a fan they told him to begin with. However, now there's a rift between the 3 of them. Should I just let this whole thing go and pay for her education? Would I be the a-hole if I stuck to my decision? Now for the top comments. Info. Why did she cut you off? You leave a very important detail out. When my ex and I divorced, my ex kept our house, which was close to her friends and family. I moved to the other side of town, maybe 25 minutes away. She pulled away after I moved out and has told me that she wants to spend time with her friends and grandparents. Just to say, I voted not a-hole. Is it possible that your daughter blames you for the breakup, or was it a take sides kind of situation? My ex-wife's entire family blames everything on me. My ex-wife's sister was having an affair. I found out she was covering for her sister's whereabouts and why, and told her husband. Not a-hole. I do not understand Reddit's hive mind to spout that parents should accept their children's hurtful behavior, especially when they're old enough to know that their actions hurt. I also don't get why someone who goes no contact is entitled to someone to fund their lifestyle after no longer being a minor. Parents are human beings. They aren't infallible individuals with no feelings. Lauren is being incredibly selfish and extremely entitled to think she should be funded for college by a person she has chosen to exit a relationship with. OP is not a walking bank. You spent time reaching out, and she has blocked it every term. At some point, this adult, because college students are adults, has to recognize there are consequences to your actions. I think Ben is completely right. Your ex-wife should be blowing up at you. She should have spent those previous years helping her daughter to therapy to understand this intense dislike. Lauren went to therapy, and Daddy basically blew her off when she was 10 because she wasn't the daughter he wanted. Now he's further punishing her by taking away her college fund at near last minute. No, he isn't punishing her. She chose to not have a relationship with him. Going no contact means no contact. It means no financial banking. She was a child. Technically, she's still a child. And his last-minute withdrawing money that was set aside starting years ago with the expectation that it would be used for her college, that is punishment. And now she's going to be an adult with adult responsibilities. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for preventing my ex from moving 3 hours away with our kids? It's created huge conflicts in both households now. My ex-wife blindsided me with news that she was moving 3 hours away with her fiancé because he got a better paying job. And the kids, who are 11 and 14, wanted to move too. I have week-on/week off custody. There was no way I was giving up that for just every other weekend visitation. I then found out that her fiancé had already sold his home here and had bought another one there. I immediately went to court to get an emergency order preventing the move. My ex begged me to let her go, but I refused. In the end, she was prevented from taking the kids more than 50 kilometers from where I live. Unfortunately, the fiancé broke up with my ex because of this, and she has had to move in with her mother while she looks for an apartment because she can't afford a big house anymore. I would like to say that I won, but I didn't. My kids are now extremely angry with me for causing their mother to lose her fiancé. They hate living cooped up in their grandmother's home, and are now taking out all their anger in our household. They've said some heartbreaking stuff to me and my wife. My ex, who I used to co-parent amazingly with, now does everything she can to create turmoil in my household. She has even verbally told me that she's going to use our kids to break up my marriage as revenge. And my kids have done stuff that make me believe she's going through with her threats. My wife is saying she's at her limit. Am I the a-hole for how I reacted though? I just didn't want to lose my kids. Info. Did you talk to your kids about whether or not they wanted to move before you sought an emergency order preventing it? Might they have been promised some sort of bribe to go? My fear would be that you may have won the battle by preventing the move, but that you stand to lose the war. At 14, your oldest is likely to be old enough to have their wishes given very serious consideration if they no longer want to stay with you. And if your youngest is not yet old enough, they're not far off. They wanted to move, but it was because they were promised a horse at the new house. I felt they were being bribed to be kept away from me. And kids have a say in custody when they're 15 where we live. My youngest is only 11. If this had been a proper discussion, I might have decided differently. But I felt forced to get the emergency order because it happened so last minute. This is probably going to be unpopular, but everyone sucks here. The kids are old enough to decide where they want to be. At any point during this, did you actually talk to them to see what they wanted? It doesn't sound like either of you are actually trying to put the kids first. Edit. Can you elaborate on what your children are doing that's ruining your marriage? At any point during this, did you actually talk to them to see what they wanted? And the kids, who are 11 and 14, wanted to move too. Yeah, I saw that, but I'm still wondering if he actually sat down and had a conversation with them before reacting the way he did. I just wonder if he actually tried to hear them out or just decided their feelings weren't valid. Like saying they only wanted to move due to bribes, which may be true, but did Opie come to that conclusion by having an honest conversation, or did he just decide that himself without listening to them? It could be that they genuinely wanted this new opportunity and they truly just liked their mother's new partner. Totally fair. He replied that it was because they were promised a horse at the new house. So it could have genuinely been bribe motivated, but it could also have been more complex. I do think at their age, their wants should have been considered more seriously than it seems they were. I also find weaponizing your kids to be abhorrent behavior, so I'm fully on board with everyone sucks here. This is awful, but you did not create this situation. She did. Not today, Hall, and the courts agree with you. She had to know this would be a problem, which is why she didn't tell you until it was too late for her to make other reasonable plans. If her fiancé actually broke up with her over this, they didn't have a very strong relationship to begin with. The next story is titled, Would I be the a-hole for making my half-siblings take DNA tests? My dad was a pro athlete. He wasn't famous, but he was a steady presence on a team that was. When his career ended after injury, his first wife divorced him, cleaned him out, and got custody of their kids, turned his kids against him, and never remarried so she wouldn't lose the alimony payments. When Dad met my mom, his ex threw a fit because Mom came from a poor family / wasn't white, and according to his ex, she was a gold-digging hoe because she was pregnant before they got married. My mom died when I was young, and we struggled for money between the payments Dad was making and his injury / lack of education, making it hard for him to get a job. My half-brothers were really well off from his support payments and the money from their mom and her close friend she was living with. Whenever they stayed with us, they made it clear that they were only there because of the custody order and that they thought we were trash. When Dad saw how upset they were making me after my mom died, he stopped asking them to come. Dad passed away a few months ago. His will left everything to me, so I'm basically set for a modest life. As adults, my half-brothers never had contact with him, not even on holidays or his birthday. Suddenly, they're saying that I'm not his. They're going to compel a DNA test, that I influenced his will, and they're taking me to court. I have no doubts that I'm his, thanks to a DNA test I already took years ago for non-paternity reasons that they don't know about. What I am starting to question is if any of them are his sons. Would I be the a-hole for agreeing to take a test, but insisting that they have DNA tests too, knowing that I'm not going to give them anything even if they pass? They and their mother treated my parents and me horribly. I don't want to know how far the hypocrisy stretches. I also sincerely want to not have any of them actually be my family. Now for the top comments. Info. What would be the point of demanding DNA tests from these people when it changes nothing? Your father left a will. They are not in the will. DNA does not change that, so what's the point? I think depending on the relation, if nothing is given, they can contest the will, which I assume is why they're taking her to court, so it would just cement the fact they have no rights to anything of the dad's. They already aren't your family. Just go no contact with them. How would they even compel a test? Did your father have a will that said, my stuff goes to my favorite son / daughter, or did it say, my stuff goes to Opie? Not they, Hull. They definitely are, but just drop the rope already, for your own mental health. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for trying to stop my dad having a baby with his wife? My 22 female, dad 52 male, and his wife 42 female got married around 8 years ago. She was initially very charming and sweet, but behind closed doors, she became very manipulative a few years into their marriage. I, still in university, moved in with my dad and his wife when I was 19, and she made it clear she didn't want me around. I also became increasingly concerned about the way she treated my dad. I witnessed constant gaslighting, and I could see him beginning to doubt himself all the time. They were also trying for a baby, and his wife had 2 miscarriages over this period of time. My dad let me know that he did not really want a baby. However, he wanted to make her happy. At that point, I did not have any problem with them having a child together. However, there was constant tension in the house, and his wife eventually moved out into a flat nearby. She maintained to my dad that they were still in a relationship, and he remained loyal to her. However, she became unavailable to my dad and was constantly out at bars, being cagey with her phone around him, etc. Basically, it seemed to me that she was stringing him along while possibly seeing other people. That was 14 months ago, and for the past 6 months or so, she has refused to contact my dad in any way other than sending each other letters back and forth. She has also since moved 7 hours away from us, and so her and my dad have not seen each other for around 6 months. About 9 months ago, my dad's mom, my grandma, died, and she did not answer any of his calls during this time period, although she knew what was going on. Recently, my dad has been really unhappy about how unavailable his wife is. He has been drinking much more and seems really depressed. So the other day when I found one of the letters from my dad's wife to him, I read it. I know this was nosy and invasive, but I did out of concern for my dad. In the letter, she says that she has, as they have agreed, I didn't know this, been going to an IVF clinic and was about to start the screening process. However, the clinic have told her they won't go ahead with screening because her and my dad are no longer together. She then says to my dad that they could get a solicitor to draft a parental agreement, but she says this would cost them thousands of pounds. So she suggested that instead, they both lie to the IVF clinic and say that they are together. It seems to me as if she's trying to dissuade my dad from a legal document which would protect him. To an outsider, it seems very clear that she doesn't want a relationship with my dad, refusing contact, moving 7 hours away, constant ultimatums and game playing. But that she wants to have a baby with him because he will pay for the IVF and will have to pay child support. She does not work. He earns a good amount. I would like to contact my dad's wife. She hasn't spoken to me since my grandma died, if only so she knows someone is onto her. Am I the a-hole for wanting to step in here? Not the a-hole. She's abusing your father. I would have a frank discussion with him about what, if any, benefits he gets out of the marriage. He needs to get a legal separation at the minimum and a divorce, just to protect himself from whatever he is doing. I would like to contact my dad's wife. She hasn't spoken to me since my grandma died, if only so she knows someone is onto her. Opie, don't talk to her. Talk to your father like Dallas says. Not a-hole. Hire a private investigator. Need pictures to show her with other men. She's probably living with another man. Lying to that man and definitely lying to your dad. She's trying to extort money out of him. Get your dad some help. He needs therapy to break out of whatever delusions he is under. Stepmom is diabolical. She doesn't need a baby. She wants money. She will convince him to deposit money in her account so that she can pay for treatment. Have your dad insist that the IVF has to be done in his city. Non-negotiable. Not a-hole. I would write the IVF clinic and tell them she and your father have lived 7 hours apart since X date. I would also write that they intend to lie in their forms, and you don't think that is in the best interest of a baby. I have thought about doing that. I don't know how I'd provide evidence though, and whether the clinic would even care. I wish I knew what clinic it was too. It's somewhere 7 hours away where she lives.